There are cities built from dreams, cities born of war, but only a few, like Berlin, are shaped by both. This is not just a city, it is a wound that learned how to heal, a scarred canvas painted over with resilience, ruins, and rebirth. Every stone tells a story, every crack remembers something the world tried to forget. From emperors to empires, from bombs to bricks, from peace to pain, Berlin has seen the worst of humanity and still dared to rise. This is not a history lesson. This is a story of survival, of a city that refused to fall. Brandenburg Gate, the silent witness. In the very heart of Berlin stands one of its oldest and most iconic structures, the Brandenburg Gate. Built between 1788 and 1791, it was inspired by the gateways of ancient Athens, commissioned by the Prussian King Frederick William II. It was meant to symbolize peace, but over the next 2 centuries, the gate would become something else entirely. Not just a monument, but a witness to history's most dramatic and darkest moments. In 1806, just 15 years after it was completed, the silence of the city was broken by the thunder of marching boots. Napoleon's army had arrived. He ordered the quadriga, the statue of the goddess of victory riding her chariot atop the gate, to be taken to Paris as a trophy of war. Berlin was humiliated, the gate overshadowed by defeat. But after Napoleon's fall, the statue was returned. This time, altered. The goddess of peace now held an iron cross. She no longer stood for peace, but for victory. It was the first of many times the gate would be redefined by the politics of power. A century later, another empire rose and brought the gate deeper into the shadow of tyranny. Under Hitler and the Nazi regime, the Brandenburg Gate became a central symbol of fascist power. Massive banners hung from its columns, armies paraded through it. The gate had become a stage, not for peace, but propaganda. When World War II reached its devastating peak, Berlin was reduced to rubble. The gate was heavily damaged, but it remained standing, scarred, yet unbroken. Then, in 1961, Berlin was torn in two. The Berlin Wall went up, separating east from west, freedom from fear, and once again the Brandenburg Gate stood at the center of it all. No longer a passage, it became a blockade. On one side, West Berliners could only stare at it from behind barriers. On the other, East Berliners were forbidden to approach. The gate was frozen in silence, a ghost between two worlds. But history wasn't done. On November 9, 1989, the wall fell. People flooded the streets, crying, cheering, embracing. And they didn't just come to see the gate, they ran through it. East met West not with tanks, but with tears. For the first time in decades, the gate was no longer a barrier. It was a bridge. Reichstag. Fire and democracy. Just a short walk from the Brandenburg Gate stands another building, proud, defiant, and heavy with memory, the Reichstag. Today, it is the home of Germany's parliament. But in 1933, it became something much darker, the site of a fire that would ignite a dictatorship. On the night of February 27th, flames tore through the chamber, lighting up the Berlin sky. The fire was blamed on a lone communist, but many believe the Nazis orchestrated it themselves. What mattered most wasn't who started it, but what came next. The burning Reichstag became the excuse Adolf Hitler needed to dismantle democracy, arrest his enemies, and take total control. For years after, the building stood in silence, bombed during World War II, scarred by bullets and blackened by fire. During the Cold War, it sat abandoned, a broken monument near a broken wall. Germany was divided. The Reichstag, like the nation it once governed, had lost its voice. But history gave it a second chance. After reunification in 1990, the Reichstag was restored, not just rebuilt, but reimagined. A striking glass dome now sits atop the structure, a modern crown on an old soul. Visitors can walk above the parliamentary chamber, looking down on the government in session. It is a bold message that democracy must be transparent, that power must always be watched from below. The Reichstag today is not just a building. It is proof that even after fire and betrayal, a nation can choose the light. Berlin Cathedral, Faith through fire. Across the Spree River, where the old city whispers through cobbled streets, stands the majestic Berlin Cathedral, the Berliner Dom. Its domes rise like prayers into the sky, a masterpiece of faith and empire. Once built as the royal church for the Hohenzollern dynasty, it was meant to inspire awe, and it still does. But like everything else in Berlin, the cathedral has known war. During World War II, Allied bombs rained down on the city. The cathedral was hit hard. Its great dome collapsed, its windows shattered, its heart cracked open. Bullet holes pockmarked its walls, but even in ruin, it stood tall, a ghost of beauty amid the rubble. For decades, the building remained damaged, a haunting reminder of what was lost, and what might still be found again. And slowly, piece by piece, it was rebuilt. Today, the organ plays once more. Light filters through restored stained glass, and choirs fill the cathedral with song. The scars haven't been hidden, they've been honored. Because Berlin doesn't erase its pain, it sings through it. The Berlin Cathedral is not just a church, it's a survivor. A place where emperors once prayed, and where, today, anyone can walk in and feel something ancient stir. A reminder that even faith, like cities and people, can be wounded, but never truly silenced. Berlin Television Tower, the eye of the divide. Above the rooftops, past the cathedrals, into the sky, and there it is, the Fernsehturm, Berlin's television tower, a needle in the sky, silent and unblinking. Built in the 1960s by the East German regime, it wasn't just a piece of infrastructure, it was a statement. A cold, gleaming monument meant to rival the West. "We are here," it declared. "We are strong, and we are watching." At over 350 meters tall, it could be seen from almost anywhere in the city, even from West Berlin. And that was the point. East Germany wanted the world to see its power reach for the clouds. But history has a strange sense of humor. Whenever sunlight hit the tower's silver dome just right, it cast a reflection. The shape of a cross, glowing boldly across the sky. To the atheist state, this was a problem. To the people, it was poetic justice. They began calling it the Pope's Revenge, a Christian symbol shining from a socialist icon. The Fernsehturm still stands today, but its message has changed. No longer a symbol of division or dominance, it has become a symbol of unity. The tower that once tried to separate East from West now gives a 360-degree view of a city reunited. People ride the elevator to the top, not to spy or compete, but to marvel. The city stretches out in all directions. There are no more walls, just stories, just sky. Victory Column, from triumph to transformation. And then, through the trees of Tiergarten Park, she appears, tall, golden, and glowing in the sun. The Berlin Victory Column. Built in 1873 to celebrate Prussia's military triumphs over Denmark, Austria, and France, this was once a monument to conquest. She holds a laurel wreath in one hand and a spear in the other, Victoria, the Roman goddess of victory. But as with everything in Berlin, time would reshape her meaning. In the 1930s, the Nazis moved the column from its original spot near the Reichstag to the heart of their planned imperial capital, which they called Germania. They wanted the column to stand at the center of a world empire, the proud centerpiece of a future that never came. Because like their empire, that dream collapsed. World War II came, cities fell, Berlin burned. But somehow the victory column endured, and when the smoke cleared, she was still standing. Not because of what she once symbolized, but in spite of it. Today, the Golden Angel watches a different kind of movement. Not soldiers, but marathon runners, protesters, pride parades, festivals, tourists, locals on bicycles. The very people she once loomed over now dance at her feet. The victory column has become something new, not a relic of war, but a witness to transformation, a symbol not of conquest, but of endurance. She no longer stands for what was won on the battlefield, but for what was reclaimed in the soul of a city. The city that rose Berlin is not just built from stone. It's built from scars, from silence, from second chances. It's a city where gates once closed now stand open, Where fire once silenced democracy, but now lets the people speak. Where cathedrals sing again, where towers that once watched now welcome, and where a golden angel no longer stands for war but for resilience. Each monument we've seen isn't just a piece of history. It's a chapter in a much bigger story, a story of a city that was broken and chose to rebuild, that was divided and dared to heal. Berlin doesn't forget. It doesn't hide its past behind polished glass or tourist maps. It lets you see the cracks. It invites you to walk through them. Because that's what makes Berlin different. It doesn't try to be perfect. It just tries to be honest. And in that honesty, in that raw, unfiltered truth, Berlin shines. So the next time you stand beneath the Brandenburg Gate, or look down from the Fernsehturm, or hear the echo of an organ in the cathedral, remember, you're not just visiting a city. You're standing in the heart of a story, one that still lives, one that still heals, one that refuses to fall. This is Berlin, a city that never stopped rising. Berlin isn't just a place, it's a survivor, a storyteller, a lesson, that no matter how broken something seems, it can be rebuilt. If this story moved you, share it, because stories like this must live on.